Hey, Ryan here with Rusticriverengraving. Today we thought we'd make a quick video on how we engrave our tumblers from start to finish here on our Thunder laser using light burn. We've been engraving tumblers now for a little over 2 years. During that 2 years we've made a bunch of mistakes here and there. We've learned some tips and tricks during those 2 years. There's other videos out there, but hopefully you get something out of this one, and thanks for watching. All right, so first you can see we have our engraver out in our garage, just where we run our business out of, which is nice having this extra room. We've got it heated, so just nice to have it out here instead of in the house. We've got it vented outside there. So this is the Thunder Nova 51. It's the 130 watt. As you can see, it is a pretty large machine, but we've never regretted having the bigger machine. It's nice having that extra bed space. In case you want to put a large sign or a large board in there. Just nice to have. This is the Rotoboss. We did purchase it with our Thunder laser, so it came with it. So very nice piece of equipment, nice to use for tumblers. It's pretty plug and play. You just plug it in. Once you get it on the bed there, you just plug it into this little rotary port here that's on the right side, and it just starts talking to the laser. So pretty simple. As far as the rotary itself, it's got very, very strong magnets on the bottom. So once you get this set, you really don't have to worry about it moving around unless you just bump it with your arm. But it takes quite a bit to move it once those magnets connect to the magnetic bed here. For the sake of time, I went ahead and I've got the laser set up on my x-axis, and that would be the left to right. So I've already got that set, and how I like to do it, there may be different ways to do it, but what I found works best for me is I'll get it centered up on those the center of those wheels there. So there's one there, and then this wheel here. So I've got, as you can see, I've got that centered up. You can see the red dot right in the middle of that wheel there. So I'll just move it over to the right, and I'll just make sure and I've already got this set, like I said, but this is how I get my rotary set up on the x-axis, left to right. As you can see, it's centered up in both of those wheels. Next thing we'll do is we'll get our tumbler put in the rotary. We'll get it level and get that fit in there before we go any further. All right, so today we're going to be using a 20-ounce JDS Polar Camel. As you can see, I've got it set in the rotary. It's not level yet, but what I like to do is I like to get it just inside on that left side, and then just a I don't know, a 1/4 inch or so gap. You don't want it touching, but you don't want it too far away from there. So to adjust your rotary, this one here goes, as you can see, it's going in and out, and then this wheel here will take you up and down. So a must-have for if you're engraving tumblers, you want it to be level. You want it to be the rotary to be straight on your engraver, and you want your tumbler to be level in your rotary. So as you can see, this is just inexpensive. You can pick these up at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever hardware store. It's just a line level, but it's perfect for these. You can just set it on top, and as you can see, it's out of level. So I'm going to move that. I'm going to adjust that down, and I'm going to make that to where that bubble's right dead in the center. Okay, so as you can see, that's right in the middle there. So I know my tumbler is level now. Next thing I'm going to do is what I've done here is I put a piece of painter's tape, and I've marked my center here, so I never have to find that center again. So really all I need to do is move my laser. You want to make sure it's down far enough so you don't have a head crash there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my laser to that center mark that I've already found, which is right there. So that's already centered up. And the next I'm going to move my laser to the left and get my height set up for my focus. So I need to go up just a hair. Okay, so I like to take it just a little bit out of focus. That's why you can see I've got a little just some tape on top. I just like for it to be a little out of focus for engraving. So the tumblers level is set in the rotary. We're good to go on that part. Next thing I want to mention is your origin. So if you move your laser back to the left, what I like to do is I like to put it right on that edge where the stainless meets that powder coating. So right there, as you can see, it's right on that that line in between the stainless and the powder coating. And then what I'll do from here is I'll come over to my controller, and I'll just hit the origin button. All right, next thing we're going to do is one thing you have to do, especially if you're doing different sizes tumblers, different brands, you're going to have to make sure your steps per rotation is set, and I'll show you how to do that next. Okay, so before we jump into Lightburn, one thing I want to mention is what you want to do is get your measurements before you go into Lightburn. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting a measurement from where that stainless meets the powder coating, and basically your engraving area. So I know that's going to be my top, and then right here where these ribs are, that's going to be my bottom. So I'm going to get a measurement from here to here, and then I'm going to put a fabric tape around the circumference, and I'm going to get a measurement of the circumference of my cup. Jumping into Lightburn here, we just took our measurements on our tumbler, and so I know that this measurement from top to bottom, so where that stainless meets the powder coating up to the top of those ridges, I know this engraving area is going to be 4 3/8, so that's 4.375, and I know my circumference, my width, is going to be 10.75. So I'm going to go into Lightburn here. I'm going to go over here to the left and make a box. And I'm going to make that box, so I have it in a tool color. So the bottom left and right, there's orange and blue. Those are your tool colors. They will not make a line or engrave. So I like to use that for my box. So I'm going to highlight that, and I know my width is 10.75. That is the outside circumference. And my height is 4.375. So that's 4 3/8. Okay, so basically what you're looking at here that is your tumbler as you're looking at it. That's your height and that's your width for circumference. So what I do from here is I highlight it and I go up to arrange and I rotate that to the left 90 degrees. From here I will duplicate and I'll make a smaller box. I'll just drag that, and I want that to be about a 1/4 inch wide, so 0.25. And I'll make that a line setting in red. I always for me personally, I use my red for line and my blue for engrave. So you'll see why here in a minute I want that to be a line. So basically, I'm going to send this to the laser here in a minute, and I want it to make a line starting from here, going all the way around, and I want it to end exactly where I started. So that's where your steps per rotation is going to come into play. So now that I've got that set, there's a couple things I want to look at. First of all, as you remember a few minutes ago, we pushed user origin on the controller. So right here, you'll see start from user origin. Make sure you have that. You have to have that selected. And then I want it to be job origin right here in the left center. As you can see, that's where my green dot is. So that's where it's going to start and stop from. From here, I'm going to go to my rotary setup. So you can do that two ways. You can either go to laser tools up in the left, go to rotary setup, and that'll open it there, or you can go to this little shortcut depending on what version you have and go to rotary setup here. It takes you to the same screen. So when I'm in this screen here, there's two things I'm looking for. So your steps per rotation is one of the main things. Your roller diameter, that's going to be, you'll have that set up when you first get the rotary set up. Your object diameter and your circumference. So the two things I'm going to be looking at is your steps per rotation and circumference. So I know circumference, we already measured that. That's going to be 10.75. So I've got that already put in there. And that automatically populates to the object diameter, whatever you put in for the circumference. So the only thing that's unknown at this time is my steps per rotation. So this is a 20-ounce Polar Camel Tumbler. Can't talk. Usually I do 16 ounces, so this will be new new settings for me here. So this is a good time to learn for you and me. So you get to see how I do it, because I really don't have the steps for rotation set. So I don't know that at this point, so I'm going to leave it as that. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Before I go into that, so if I tell it to make a line and it starts here and it goes around and it ends like here, so it's not making that full connection, that means my steps per rotation is too low. If I overlap and go across where I started from, that means they're too high. So that's how you can kind of judge on whether you need to lower the steps or raise them. So I'm gonna, for now, go ahead and hit OK. Here in a minute, I'm gonna put some. So basically, my stainless part here is the same circumference of where I'm going to be engraving. It's pretty close. So instead of trying to put painter's tape and making the chance of it going through the tape and going into my tumbler, I'm going to do it at the stainless part. So I'm going to put some electrical tape around the top and then some painter's tape that will show me my line pretty clearly. So we'll put some tape on here and we'll jump back over to the laser in just a sec. So before, real quick, so I better change this before I forget to do so. So up in your cuts and layers, so again, I have that red set to a line. I want it to make a line. I don't want it to engrave. First of all, I'm going to turn the air assist off. I don't want it. I don't need it on for this. It's going to be very low power. What I usually do is I usually do 500. Again, this is a 130 watt laser, so it may be different than what you're using. But I'm going to make it 500 speed, and I'm going to set it really low. I'm going to go 4 power, because I don't want it to engrave through the tape into my tumbler. So I like to set it really low. Make sure you have just one pass. So that's all set right. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So now that I have the start point where I want it, the speed, make sure you have that checked. I'm going to go ahead and send that to the laser. So I'm going to go over to send. You can name it whatever you want to pull up in the, sorry, my heater just kicked on. You can name it whatever you want. It's going to pull up in the laser. Go ahead and hit OK. You want to override it? Yes. Okay, so now this has been sent to the laser. We'll get this tumbler taped up, and then we'll get back over to the laser here in just a minute. Okay, now back in the laser. Got the tumbler all taped up. We got it put back in the tumbler. We'll just go ahead and double check the level, make sure that's still showing level, which it is. Once again, all I'm concerned about making a line is on that top stainless portion to make sure it doesn't go into the powder coated area. So that's really what I had taped up. I have the electrical tape underneath this blue tape to make just a precaution. So I have as you can see, I have my red dot at the very tip of that blue tape. I don't want it to go any lower than where it meets that powder coating right here. As you can kind of see that line through the tape there. So once I have that set, I've got my height checked, double check that, make sure. So I think we're good to go as far as this setup goes. I'm going to go ahead and close the lid. So I'm going to go ahead, since I did take the tumbler out, I'm going to go ahead and hit my origin again. So this is just telling it, once again, I want you to start exactly where that red dot is at. So I'm going to go into our file. I'm going to find our file, which should be the very top one. It's the Lightburn file. We did not rename it, but we could have. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And as you can see, that box comes up. So that's our 1/4 inch wide by 10 3/4 inch box that's going to make a line on top of our tumbler there. So once I have that selected, I'm going to go ahead and push the start button. All right, we're going to pull it out and see where we're at. Okay, so this is a good example here. So as you can see, try to zoom in to where you can actually see it. So there we go. Okay, so as you can see, I overlapped my box. So it started here, and it went farther, about 1.5 inches or so, and so it overlapped my box. So that line is not meeting right in the middle where I want it to. So what that tells me is my steps per rotation is too high. So we're going to go back into our light burn settings and we're going to make those adjustments lower, and then do that again. All right, back into light burn here. So what we know now is that steps per rotation is too high. So I'm going to just highlight that, and I'm going to take it down to 3,800 steps per rotation. Hit OK. And since we did make those adjustments, I'm going to resend it back to the laser again. This time I'll just call test. Hit OK. Again, you can name that whatever you want to name it, whatever you'll recognize it. Override it, yes. Okay, so now it's sent back to the laser with those updated settings, and then we'll jump back over to the laser and give it another test. All right, so took a little bit of back and forth, just lowering it, raising it a little bit, but I finally found the sweet spot. Let me try to get zoomed in where you can see it there. Okay, so as you can see there, my line is meeting up exactly where it started and back where it ended. So I know that steps per rotation is perfect on this particular tumbler. The sweet spot was 37.15 for steps per rotation. So once you have it, as long as you're using this, like if I were to have 20 of these and I had that set, I don't have to mess with that again. But if you go from this 20 ounce Polar Camel to say a 20 ounce Stanley or a Yeti, you're gonna have to go and double check all of that stuff again just to make sure you're set to the right steps per rotation, mainly on that. So now that we have that good, we're gonna get our tape pulled off and get that back in the tumbler, or excuse me, the rotary, and then we'll jump back into light burn and get our design going in light burn. We'll do some engraving, get it cleaned, and finish her up. All right, back over into light burn. So now we have our box. I'm gonna take that red box that we made earlier. We no longer need that. We've got our settings good to go. I'm gonna take that box, go to arrange, and rotate that back right. So I can look at it while I'm getting everything set up. I can look at it how it would be, you'd be facing the tumbler. So with my tumbler, I want these two logos. So I want this logo to be on one side, and then I want this logo to be on the exact opposite. So we know our box here, our width is 10.75. What I like to do is I like to make two separate boxes. I want to split that in half. So I'll right click, duplicate, and I know half of 10.75 is 5 3/8, so 5.375. So I've duplicated it. I'm going to go up to width and go 5.375. And now I've got exactly two equal boxes. So one half of the tumbler and the other half of the tumbler. What I like to do first is take one logo and drag it over into that box. With your control, hit your control button, highlight that also so you have both selected. And I like to just come up here and hit the center button. So I know that logo is exactly center in that half of the box or that half of the tumbler. Okay, so now it's time to go get the other one set that's going to engrave on the opposite side. So I'll highlight that box. I'll move it over to where it meets up with this edge here. As close to perfect as you can get it. That's pretty close to perfect. And then I'll take this other logo and do the exact same thing. I'll drag it over, control, grab that box, and again hit the center button. So I know that this logo is exactly center in that box, and this one is exactly center in the other. So from here, you're pretty much good to go. If you want to make any adjustments, you can. What I like to do sometimes is just grab it and go just a little bit up, so it's not exactly right in the middle. So that's kind of how I like to do it. Just take it a little bit higher than the exact center of it. So from here, I'm good to go. I've got the logos exactly where I want them. One other thing I need to double check is my settings for engrave. So once again, I have the 130 watt. So I'm going to go up to cuts and layers, And what I've found my sweet spot for engraving tumblers is, for this laser, is 400 speed and 35 power. Line interval I like to keep at 0.065, so that's 390 lines per inch. So these settings are just kind of what I found that works for me. You might find something that works better for you, and that's just fine. Make sure your fill all shapes at once is selected, and go ahead and hit OK. So now we are ready to send. We've got our settings right. Make sure your air assist is off. I'm going to highlight all of that. Again, go up to arrange, rotate to the left, because that's how it's going to be sent to the laser. Okay, so now that this is ready to be sent to the laser, I'm going to go back over to my send, and I'm going to name this final. Hit OK. All right, so now we are good to go. This has been sent to the laser, so we're going to go back over to the laser, get it engraved, and get it cleaned up. All right, we've got our tumbler back in there. We've got our tape pulled off. As you can see, there's no marks at all. Once again, I'm going to have that right there on that line where it meets the stainless meets the powder coating. I have that laser set there. My height's good. I'm going to go ahead and close the door on that. Once again, never hurts to hit that origin button again, just to make sure it's going to start exactly where that dot's at. I'm going to go to my file button, and as you can see, my final setting there, I'm going to go ahead and select that. Okay, and those are the two logos that I want. Once I have those ready, I'm going to go ahead and push start, and we'll go over to the laser. All right, got the tumbler put out the laser, and as you can see here, it's pretty dirty. Does not come out looking clean, but we'll get that cleaned up pretty nice here in just a second. So what I like to use, what I found works great for tumblers or leatherette, is this LA's. LA is totally awesome. I think I picked this up off of Amazon. As you can see, I've used almost all of this gallon up because I've used it quite a bit, but this works great. And I use that along with just a magic eraser. So what I'll do is I'll take a microfiber towel. I'll just give it a good spray with that LA's totally awesome. Just spray it down good. And I'll give that a wipe down with my magic eraser. And as you can see here, it just comes out flawless. Get that a nice wipe down. As you can see, it gets every bit of that dark smudge off from the engraving. And then I'll go ahead and get this other side cleaned up. Just spray it, just scrub it just a little bit with the magic eraser. As you can see, I've used this quite a bit, but it goes a long way. Once again, give that a nice wipe down with your microfiber towel. And once again, just comes out flawless. So no markings, no no smudge left over. Just give it a nice wipe down. And there you go. That's the process of engraving a tumbler. Hope this helped. Thanks.